Hi, I'm Dean Rumpel, CEO of Pleasure-Way Industries, and joining me today is Neil from Ultramobility, and I'm excited to have him here. Today, I'm going to take Neil on his own personal in-depth tour of all of our production facilities and show him how we build our Pleasure-Way motorhomes. So we're starting in the welding shop today, Neil, and in here is where we're going to do all of our prep before they start the production process. So here we're going to do our window cutouts. All of our hatches are going to get cut out. This is where we also do the wide bodies. We're going to build all our frame and all our caging for that. And we also put through all of our steel plates with threaded rod. Now, when we build on Mercedes, as an example, you can't weld to the frame underneath because of their undercoating. So what we have to do is we drop threaded rods through with these steel plates that we can bolt up all of our tanks, generators, such things like that. Also, when we're done, this is all completely covered in subfloor, so nobody ever really gets to see this process.
So what we're seeing here, this is a ProMaster that we're looking at.
Right, yes.
And are you required by RAM to do the same thing on the ProMaster, or do you just do it because it's what you do?
We do it because it's good, it's
right.
Quality, and it's very strong versus bolting onto the framing underneath. And it's easier just to drop out a tank. You just undo the nuts and you can drop a tank out versus bracketing and bolting everything up underneath. It's easier for techs to service.
So on the Mercedes, is it safe to say that you do that because you're a master upfitter? Is that part of...
It is part of the criteria for a master upfitter. They do not want you welding underneath their frame. That's just a fact. So we developed this is the way it had to be done, and then we just translated it into our other products so it's streamlined and everybody is used to doing the same thing. The more repetitive we get at it, the better the quality becomes.
So this is the way you get the van chassis when it comes in?
Yeah.
Pretty much like this without this stuff here?
That's right. This is a bare bones cargo van. That's how we're ordered. And if we take a look over here at the Mercedes, this is the new 2019. It's the same thing. It's a stripped out cargo van, and here you can see we've marked out where we're going to be putting in our water heater and our outdoor shower. These are all the vents and hatches, the fridge vent. Everything here, as you can see, once we cut it out, it gets primed. All these raw edges are primed so that it's not going to rust and you won't have rust bleeding out under if there's any issues with moisture.
Now, does Mercedes dictate to you how many openings you can put into their chassis and the size, or are there special things you need to do to comply?
Yes, so one of the first rules is you can't cut below this sill.
Okay.
Right, this is because it's a unibody construction. If you think of it as a pop can, once you dent a pop can, it starts to lose some of its strength. So there are very specific places you cannot cut. One is cutting through this sill. So we can't do that. Everything has to be above. And when you're cutting through certain parts of the interior structure, you're required to reinforce it.
So is it safe to say, if I wasn't a Mercedes upfitter, I wouldn't have to worry about these concerns, these safety concerns and rigidity of the body and things like that?
No, if you're not a Mercedes upfitter, your insurance company probably worries about them.
Right.
But yeah, it's pretty critical to be a master upfitter.
I mean, that's one of the benefits?
It's one of the benefits. Also a little known benefit. So when we install our tanks up underneath, and let's say worst case scenario, you had an issue with the transmission and they had to do some repair work. Well, if you're a master upfitter, they'll remove all those tanks at no expense to anybody. They cover that removal and replacement. If you're not a master upfitter, then I have to pay to have that tank removed for them to work on their
meaning me, the person?
Me, or you'd be looking at me to pay for it at the end of the day for sure. So that's one of the benefits. The second benefit to being a master upfitter is your warranty starts the day you buy it. If you're not a master upfitter, the warranty starts the day that upfitter bought it. So if it sits somewhere for a year and then you get it, you're 1 year less on your warranty.
Into my 3-year or whatever warranty is, I see.
Yeah. So it's critical to be a master upfitter.
Okay.
So here's the new Mercedes, and this one as you can see, we've put all the bracketry for holding our tanks through the floor. But as an example, here where our cutout is for our fridge vent, we have to reinforce that metal, which we do, and we also go to the point of priming and painting it just to give it some extra durability in the long run.
So again, this is going to be for Mercedes, is this part of, again, the master upfitter?
Yes.
When they want you to make sure that the openings that you're cutting out are reinforced for safety? Is that?
Yeah, it's to keep the structural integrity of the van. So they approve all of our cutouts and what we do. So we show them this is where we need to put a vent. They go, okay, you can cut this little piece out, but we need you to reinforce it with steel, and it needs to be done this way. So that's part of the partnership we have with Mercedes.
And so again, if I were looking at a van that maybe was converted from someone who wasn't a master upfitter, there's no guarantee that this would have been done.
No, there's no guarantee that's done. There's no guarantees. You can see up here in the roof vent and also at the back where we put our air conditioner, that it also is reinforced so that it maintains its unibody strength.
Yeah, and some of this stuff is like, I would never know, and there would be no way for you to look behind the scenes to find this stuff.
Not at all.
I mean, it's all, you're going to put insulation and paneling
Yeah.
over this stuff. You'd never know.
No, for sure.
Yeah. So what are we looking at here, Dean?
Well, this is where we start bonding our steel to our wide body walls. So as you can see, all this steel, it's welded in a jig, so it's precise every time, and it has the structural layout. Then what we do is we take our fiberglass wall and we Sikaflex it to the steel.
What is Sikaflex?
Sikaflex is a bonding agent that once it bonds to the fiberglass, you're never going to tear it apart. We've been using it with our wide bodies going back to our old Ford Excels 15 years ago. So we know this is a tried and true proven process. So once we have all of the steel here and it's all inlaid and it's cured, we pick the wall up and then we will mount the wall directly onto the floor frame of the wide body chassis and then weld it together. So our wide body frames, the floors and the roof ribs and the sidewalls are all welded together, and then the walls, all the fiberglass is bonded, so we do not use screws to attach everything.
So there's not a single screw here.
None.
And when you do the final assembly, when you put the walls up and the ceiling on,
Yeah.
the roof on,
Yeah.
are there screws used?
No. So it's all the steel ends up being welded together, so it gives us a concise steel structure. All the fiberglass is bonded to that steel and it overlaps itself. So you're going to have the roof overlapping the sidewalls, and the front cap and the rear cap are going to overlap the roof. So everything at the end of the day is all sealed up, and you're not going to have to worry about screws loosening up, leaking. You're never going to have to reseal anything.
So that was my question. So the advantage of that is there's just no screws, there's no worrying about any leakage or anything like that.
No, and you don't have to worry about screws giving out in time, because at the end of the day it's a motorhome and it's traveling, bouncing down a road, and those things will tend to loosen up over time. But with this system we have, which I guess they call it like a hung wall system versus vacuum bonding, this is going to give you the strongest exterior shell you can possibly have.
Now, a couple other observations.
Yeah.
I notice that these walls they're full length. They go all the way from the roof line. And would these be the storage compartments down here?
Yes.
So I mean, some motorhomes I look at, they would stop, it would stop here.
Right. So a lot of, especially vacuum bonded walls, they stop on the top of the frame,
Right.
and then they add compartments up, and it's like two pieces. Right. So this, we have a one-piece wall, and then we're going to cut out around for our storage doors.
And then so this is steel,
Yes.
heavy duty.
Yep.
So where's the weight of this wall? Is it resting on the floor, or where's the weight of it?
Okay.
It's welded?
Yes, so we have a steel, a lot of manufacturers put outriggers on the Mercedes chassis where they'll have the existing frame and they'll just bolt on an outrigger. Right. We choose to use a complete floor frame. So it spreads the load and the weight all the way across onto both sides on our existing frame, which supplements the existing Mercedes frame. So when we weld our walls on, they hang down past, but because we're welding it all together and we're distributing the weight evenly, it's a super strong process.
I see. So on some build-out techniques, what they would do is they would have these outriggers. Each one would be bolted on
Yes.
to the frame.
Yes.
And you don't have that. You have one single steel piece on the floor
Right.
that this is welded to.
Yes.
I see.
As an example, here is some of our floor frame. So our floor frames are 2 pieces because we raise up at the back. So this is the piece that goes at the back, and you can see here's where it would normally be an outrigger for some manufacturers, but here we carry that piece right across and it's all tied in so it spreads the load of the weight around.
So this is a single piece right through here. Now this is this is bolted, right?
Yes.
Onto it?
Yes, this gets bolted on the top of the frame.
But then each one of these outriggers, instead of each single piece being bolted in,
Yeah.
this is welded?
This is all welded together.
Okay.
So
And
this
then-
gives you a ton of strength.
So, and then there's 2 pieces for this, right?
Yes,
One in
we
the
have an
front,
upper and a lower floor.
upper and a lower floor.
So we bolt our subfloor down onto the frame, and then we weld everything to each other.
It sounds like you'd be able to roll one of these things and
It would never come off.
It would never
It would
come
never
off.
come off.
Right.
They're like a tank for sure.
Why steel versus aluminum? Aluminum's a lot lighter.
Aluminum is lighter for sure. We've always used steel in our processes, and because of our construction techniques, we can still achieve a pretty healthy occupant and cargo carrying capacity. We just feel that steel is safer and stronger.
So for instance, if if this gets hit and dented, it's going to be fine.
Yes, it's
not
gonna
gonna
take a
collapse
lot
on
more.
itself.
No, not at all.
Right, I see.
So we first start the process, Neil, it all starts at stripping. So we'll bring our brand new coach in, this van, this is how it comes to us originally from Mercedes, and now we're gonna start, we'll take out the driver and passenger seat, we're gonna remove tail lights, the front bumper, we're gonna remove some of these components so they don't get damaged during the process, and then they'll all get put back on at the end. And you can see here, we write the serial numbers down of every piece, left hand, right hand, and it goes right back on that same existing coach every time.
So even though these are all identical here from Mercedes,
Yeah,
you label each one left, right
yeah.
for the coach, and they're going to go right back on the original one they came off of.
That's the one they came off of. So there's never a question is that the right piece for that van?
And then what's the green tape that I'm seeing here? There's some up in the cab covering bits and pieces.
Yeah, so we just, as an extra step, this is just a plastic shroud here underneath. We tape over it just so it doesn't get scuffed.
Because people are stepping in here.
Yeah, stepping in and out. We protect. They have some pretty nice fancy vents now in the new Mercedes, so we tape over them just to make sure dust and stuff doesn't get in and nothing accidentally happens.
I noticed later on you actually completely seal off.
Yeah, that front new navigation system, it's amazing, and we don't want to have any incidences with it. So we have covers that protect everything as it goes through the process.
So when part of the process of stripping this down, these windows here are the stock, they come from Mercedes.
Yep, these are the factory OEM windows. We're going to use some in the process, some we're going to remove later on for venting windows. Before I take you to our paint department, this is our fiberglass prep. So we make all of our fiberglass parts, and as you can see here, this is a Tofino roof. So this roof is sprayed with fiberglass chop. It's all hand rolled. When it comes out of the mold, we trim it, and then every piece gets sanded before it gets to paint. But what makes it different than a lot of others is we paint all of our fiberglass with the same automotive Glazrit paint, where a lot of companies will sometimes just use gel coat, which is, it's a good product, but over years of time, it can tend to fade. So we're using automotive paint on all of our fiberglass, and it lasts just as long as it does on your car.
And it's going to match perfectly.
And it's going to match perfectly, you bet.
And so these molds, do you computer design these? How are these actually?
The process is we cut out a wood and make like a rough shape idea, and then the process is we sculpt with foam, basically.
Sculpting.
Yep, so we will fill a cube full of foam, expandable foam. Once it cures, then we start shaping it. And then we'll take that piece of foam and we'll put it on a roof, and we'll say, how does that look? And then we'll shape and we'll shape and we'll shape until we get a mold, a rough shape out of the foam, and then it'll go into making a plug and a mold that produces the parts.
So that's kind of cool. So even these fiberglass running boards, is it safe to say that when you guys were designing those, you tried different styles and you tried different
All
mold
different
looks
kinds,
and
yeah.
things, and
it's
you
a lot
finalized
of
on that.
Yeah, for sure. We're cutting up pieces, we're putting pieces together, we're seeing how they're going to attach underneath is very critical. How are we going to mount brackets to attach it to the running board, so that helps define the shape. But it is all a very long process to get that finished piece. And we like fiberglass running boards in a lot of our stuff. Some use electric steps, as you've seen, but it's aesthetically, we feel it finishes the unit off and gives it that full, complete look.
I like the fiberglass running board on mine. I've had the electric step, and water tended to get up in there, and it was shorted out. So that's not going to happen on that one for sure. What other components do you guys use fiberglass for?
Oh, we use fiberglass on our rooftop risers, where we need to have a level place to mount things like air conditioners. We make risers for the side of vans so that when you're installing a water heater door, it's to a flush surface so that you can always get a good seal and you're not going to have water leaks. So there's a lot of little components that you're not going to see here today, especially like our wide body pieces, our big caps that we make, and our big roof for our wide bodies. Everything comes through here, everything gets sanded, prepped, and ready to paint.